Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. And with the most recent Epic Game settlement in the United States, there's been a lot of conversations in gaming media about dark patterns. So today, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about War of the Visions, as well as Ni no Kuni, talk about the dark patterns that exist in them, and what my thoughts are on dark patterns as a whole. So let's go ahead and dig in. So I think in the gacha market itself, dark patterns can be very confusing. It can be very easy to mistake something like a pop-up advertisement as a dark pattern. I would not say in most cases that is a form of kind of illicit manipulation of the player. I would say that's just marketing. And I think there's a lot of things as we do go through this and talk about this that some people might say, well, yeah, that's just common sense. But there are some things that do cause a impact to the player as well as a benefit to the company. And particularly when the games are either not refunding them or they are focused on them, that's when we kind of run into problems. So I think with War of the Visions, there's only a few examples of this. And I actually think War of the Visions is one of the better gacha games out there, actually, in terms of handling their marketing in a really transparent way and in handling kind of these dark patterns. There's only two examples I can think of. One is still ongoing. So it would be whenever you go into the shop, for example, and you would say, oh, I want to, we'll see here. They have these 2000 Visior bundles, which are absolutely garbage, right? They're always there. They're always garbage because they're basically hoping you're going to click on them and accidentally buy them. That's what it's there for. That's why there's a $0 Visior package right there, and their intention is to try and get you to buy these. And sometimes there's a 5k Visior bundle, and many players in War of the Visions have accidentally bought a 2k or a 5k, tried to get their Visior refunded, and you can't get the refund. Now, I would say this is one example of kind of these dark patterns. It's not the most egregious example, I would say. I actually think Ni no Kuni has significantly more egregious examples, but this is one of those things where it actively harms the player and it benefits the company. Now, quite similarly, we did have for a very long time, and for those of you who are older players, you may remember, when you fed the guild statues, you could actually end up in a situation where you can see here that they have the consume Visior. If I would hit, so the Kirin's main here, it would pop back up to the top of this list and you could accidentally submit Visior. Do you see how with a single click, that just consumed 200 Visior of mine to the statue? And so people had accidentally been donating Visior because of that function. So for War of the Visions, there really isn't that much going on here in terms of what I would consider, deceptive marketing or dark practices to take advantage of the player. And I actually think, to Square Enix's credit, that's really great. I think that's good. There are, some things where you would have to have common sense. And I think there is some discussion to be had about transparency in rates. I think people can say, well, the rates of summons are always transparent. They're legally required to list them. And that's true. And that is, accurate. But just in the way that like certain vision cards are for 10K, right? Certain vision cards are for 2K, right? They're adjusting your ability or willingness to pull based off of the banners that they're releasing. So there is some manipulation there. They're trying to get a expected result from their player base. So those, I would say, are things to consider. I don't think it's very egregious in War of the Visions, but it definitely exists to a lesser degree. And it's definitely not on the level that, say, Ni no Kuni or potentially Epic Games was, where they're gathering data on children, they're exploiting children, that type of thing. So flash forward to Ni no Kuni, I think there is a couple of things here which we can talk about here. And I think in my conversations, Giant and I had a longer conversation about this, and I do think you could consider cryptocurrency a dark practice, or a dark pattern, sorry. That's from my years of Starbucks, where you would say best practices all the time. But we were talking about crypto, and I think for most of my Ni no Kuni viewers and most of the people who play the game, there is a level right now of crypto literacy that we do have. For example, if you're playing the game right now, most people know about crypto. Most people are not going to be caught in the trap of it or, you know, suffer in any type of meaningful way, right? We pretty much know the game. But for people who are new to the game, for people who are, you know, just joining, there was a lot of misunderstanding about cryptocurrency. There was a lot of misunderstanding about Terite. And talking about Terite itself, I do believe that is an example of kind of these dark patterns, because a dark pattern in itself is something implemented basically into a game to essentially, it doesn't have to be physically implemented, but most of the time it is, to essentially cause a player some level of inconvenience, right? Or to create a desired marketing effect from the player, right? So the implementation of Terite, the implementation of that was to get us involved in the cryptocurrency that Netmarble had created. It was to create value for their cryptocurrency. And I'm not sure we can say it was wholly successful. I'm not fully sure. But there's an entire illusion around it, right? That you can play to earn, that if you spend money, you're going to make money, right? And in particular, a lot of players are lured in by that, right? There's this manipulation that like, oh, I can do this. I can make money from this game. This game is going to help me, right? And I think that in itself is much more egregious than anything that War of the Visions does, because there's no promise, right? There's no essentially deception. You have people all the time saying cryptocurrency is a scam, and there is some truth to that. I do understand why people say that, and I understand kind of the perspective these people are coming from. And particularly with the launch of NFTs, this is something that we're going to have to watch in Ni no Kuni. I think another thing to talk about in terms of kind of these deceptive practices in Ni no Kuni, and one of the differences is going to be around currencies. And I think, you know, we have diamonds, which is like the standard currency, but then you have all of these different types of currency, and it's not like War of the Visions, where War of the Visions will have quite often like limited time currencies or currencies for like a specific event, right? And we do have some of those in Ni no Kuni, but we have layers and layers of currency, right? We have Dominion medals, purification, honor medals, right? And these have been around, you know, since dawn immemorial, right? So I think that is, whenever you have that confusion layering on top of Asterite and Terite and conversion and NKT and NKA, on top of all of that, it really blurs transparently what's going to be a quote unquote good value and what's going to be not a good value. And it's designed to get you to buy things or to see things as being valuable when maybe they're not. Quite similarly, we do need to talk about the pity system in Ni no Kuni, because I think very few gacha games actually have the pity system that Ni no Kuni has, where you do have to get to 200, but if you're using a ticket, it's only going to cost 0.5 towards the pity, which is something I had never seen in gacha games. Ni no Kuni is the first game that I have seen that in. Even in other Netmarble games, that's not the way that it is. And I think it's a subtle manipulation, a subtle trick, and it doesn't take a ton of people falling for it, right? All it takes is 1%, 5% to say like, oh, I have 200 tickets, I have a pity, right? Even if they're like first time players to the game. And the next thing you know, Netmarble has just suckered somebody, right, into spending 200 tickets and not getting a pity. Now, some people might say, well, it's their fault for not reading the small print. But that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is these dark practices, these manipulations of, you know, probably not most of us. Most of us that are watching this video probably are pretty savvy, probably have navigated this, but it's the people that don't watch YouTube. It's the people that do not actively participate in YouTube discussions, Discord discussions. It's the people that are out there on their phone, they're playing casually, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of those people that play these games. And so it's these subtle manipulations which are designed to essentially drain money from people, to take advantage of them, that are really bad in terms of, you know, a game's atmosphere and a game's environment. And I think I would say Ni no Kuni has suffered the penalty of, you know, being called out on this, right? They have suffered, you know, being, you know, a large player base leaving because of cryptocurrency. They've suffered a large player base leaving because of Javier, right? Where 50%, I mean, we could talk about cursing too. You know, cursing, 50%, people think 50%, their odds of 50% are better than they actually are. And that's why that system exists. That's why it's been so long for dolls to be implemented, right? And you see the player base just get devastated because of this, but Netmarble makes money, right? And that's essentially what's going on here. So I'm really curious what you guys think down below. I personally think this is definitely an egregious example on Netmarble side. I think there's a lot of other examples, and I actually do need to give credit to War of the Visions, because I do think that Square Enix actually doesn't have that many deceptive practices compared to other games, and that might just be because Japan has their own enforcement of gacha laws, which is absolutely possible. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.